Roland Kirk, 1969, live, tribute to John Coltrane. He does a medley, Lush Life, Afro Blue, Bessie's Blues. And there's going to be a cutoff point because he does go into his own piece, 3 for the Festival, I believe it's called, which I've heard the studio version as well. I mean, it was my beginning entrance into Roland Kirk. But played, I don't know, if you don't know him, he's definitely unique because he was blind. He played multiple instruments at the same time, 3 horns. He also played dozens of different instruments that nobody's ever heard of before. The Manzello, the Stritch, some of them he made up, some of them hybrid. But for that reason, jazz has its borders that they easily recognize, these standards, and he's, he followed those standards to some degree in his early career, but at some point he also, like Nina Simone, kind of went into the soul, more of a fusion, not like Miles Davis, but more like a soul music. And he did a lot of covers too. He would do a lot of covers of popular songs and things like that, and I don't know how much of that was him, how much of that was the record company pushing him to become more mainstream, or to which I don't know. It depends on his intent, what was his desire. I myself, if it works, but a lot of times it seems a little hokey just to force them into these popular arenas, when they're such giant talents. It's kind of a waste of their ability. Anyway, not to go on too long, this is Roland Kirk, live, 1969. What did I... Sorry, I have some notes here. This was at the... I'm trying to remember where this was. If it was in one of the jazz festivals, I believe it was. Anyway, I'll go into his stuff a little later. But this had, this is a medley, and here we go. You're gonna enjoy this. Okay. That was the second part, Afro Blue. First part, the slower ballad, was Lush Life. Yeah, Afro Blue, oh my god. The piano player, okay, I think that was in 6/8, but he sounded a little bit like McCoy Tyner. He had that, I don't know. I can't go into piano players. There's so much they know, and I mean, I listen to a lot of piano players and stuff like that. But on my first instinct, I kind of could hear McCoy Tyner had that same sort of feel. Only because this piano player, I'm not 100%. I don't know him as much. Who else he played with, so I don't know his voice quite as much, if it's distinct from other piano players at the time, or what his whole playing style was. But anyway, yeah, this is just, God. He sounds like, I don't know what the other instrument, if he's playing the manzello or the stritch, or a soprano even. But God, it sounds like a bagpipe. It's like, it could be an acquired taste for some people. It's got that really high pitched, and he doesn't shy away from, having these tones that are maybe, not completely like soothing. Obviously, he's open to making noises of any kind, as long as he feels it's in the moment. So, and I have to go along with it. But yeah, I love the sound, even though it's not my favorite sounding instrument. But it's so, the passion that he's blowing through that thing is just like searing. Anyway, I think he's about to go into the final medley piece. I forgot, I didn't put on the, he does have an introduction, obviously. He talks about this is a tribute to John Coltrane, and gave some, I think he had just passed away, and he gave some, views about his admiration for what he had done and everything like that. So there is an intro to this where he, gives the reasons for wanting to play this music, and it was meant to, give honor, tribute for John Coltrane. Okay, here's the rest. Going into Bessie's Blues. Okay. Obviously, that little transition there is going to go into the next song, but it wasn't part of the tribute to John Coltrane. I mean, it was part of it, but it went into his own 3 for the festival. But it's a really long piece, so I just wanted to focus on these 3. So that was a blues, Bessie's Blues. Oh my God. This is where he starts to go off. Yeah, he started to go off a few times there. And just, that's why, I don't know. I love Roland Kirk. I don't know what the first song I heard by him. But I think it was probably maybe 3 for the festival. It was on that album. I heard the studio version. But I heard, but this is always, this particular live, it's just, I don't know. I just love his ability. And obviously I'm not, like I said, some people disregard him a little bit in the pantheon of jazz musicians just because of his antics, so they thought him playing multiple horns was, kind of gimmicky. But I mean, just listen, just go off the listening, just hear it. It's freaking, I don't know. If Mingus, he played with Mingus on many stuff. If Mingus respected him, then who am I to say, that he's not doing his job. Anyway, so a little bit about this. There's another thing I don't do a ton, and that's give credit to other artists on the recordings. Or I never focused on it too much. I didn't know who all the sidemen were all the time. Roland Kirk, yeah. Tenor sax, manzello, stritch, clarinet, whistle, vocals on this particular album. Ron Burton on piano, Vernon Martin on bass, Jimmy Hops on drums. I think I've heard of Jimmy Hops before, but like I said, I don't have much association with who else he's played for. Okay. So a little background. Roland Kirk was self-taught on the bugle and trumpet, which he stopped playing after a doctor said it could damage his eyeballs. He received more formal musical training on the clarinet, saxophone, and the school band at the Ohio State School for the Blind, which he attended from 1941 to 1953. So yeah, long schooling. I guess on this, it plays tenor sax on Lush Life, switches to manzello and back for Afro Blue, so that was kind of the almost bagpipey sounding horn, and switches back to tenor for the some of Afro Blue and Bessie's Blues. He was awarded first place in the Downbeat International Critics Poll in 1962, and won I think Quincy Jones had said this at some point. He was awarded one manzello and stritch first place in polls 14 years in a row, which, yeah, was he the only one was the only one up for winning, playing manzello and stritch for 14 years? It probably, I don't know who else played there. I could look that up, but let me know if you know somebody else who was beaten 14 years in a row to Roland Kirk for playing manzello and stritch. That's a sad portrait there. Something else about this particular recording. Yeah, this one was interesting. So yeah, he I think this one, I don't know if this one, but I did look up some of the recordings. Sometimes a musician, maybe about this, this was regarding the performance. These are critics. He was in the Berkeley Barb, November 14, 1969. Sometimes the musician's performance is far greater than what his audience deserves. Such was the case at Winterland last weekend when Roland Kirk played for an overcrowded house. Twice during his clarinet solo, Kirk motioned to the mass for silence, but the whooping and hee-hawing continued. In the stifling, packed auditorium, it was impossible to be comfortable anywhere, and always there was an atmosphere of frustration and potential violence. For $3 a head, the massive turnout had jammed Winterland to see Kirk, Wolfgang, Isaac Hayes, and Led Zeppelin. $3. It is possible that those who saw fit to yell and holler during Kirk's performance thought somehow they were being hip. This reflects poorly on their intelligence and respect for artists. Probably most had come to hear the popular but overrated Led Zeppelin. God, you gotta love these of the time critiques. It's it's really cool. That's why I don't know. This was at Berkeley Barb. Overrated Led Zeppelin. I mean, maybe they were. Maybe maybe they deserved a little bit 5% less popularity. Roland Kirk is one of the most daring contemporary jazz musicians. His reliance on spontaneity and experimentation take him outside the usual categories of music. He plays over a half dozen instruments. He freely employs sound effects, gongs, train whistles, constantly exploring the barriers of sound. Okay, that was from the Berkeley Barb. Yeah, like I said, there was some... it's hard to go back and get the feel, but that's Roland Kirk. Appreciate it. If you have any thoughts at all, please leave them where you need to in the comments or email me, and I'll see you next time. And it will be, I think the next video is going to be on, like I said, these are the first few videos. The next video is going to be on the first pieces of music, just two. Not a whole expansive, but the first two pieces of music that made me want to become more of a musician and inspired me to pick up an instrument and start learning. So I'll look forward to you on that, and have a good one. Bye-bye.